Welcome to Volunteer Journal. I'm your host, Walter Black. On Volunteer Journal, we introduce you to some of the persons who are improving the quality of life in our community through their involvement in volunteer-based programs. In a few minutes, we'll chat with representatives of the Houston Food Bank and get an inside perspective on their impressive new facility located about 5 miles east of downtown Houston. But first, we'll learn about an agency that extends Texas hospitality to visitors from all over the world and introduces them to some of our area's most outstanding attractions. It's called Houston Greeters. Please stay tuned. As promised, on this segment of the show, we'll feature Houston Greeters. With us are the board chair, Gordon Quam, and a very valued volunteer with the organization, Monica Rhodes. Welcome to you both.
Hello, Walter. Thanks for having us today.
Thank you very much,
Thanks
Walter.
for being here. Gordon, what is the mission of Houston Greeters?
Well, Walter, as you may know, we think that Houston's greatest asset is its people. And we have a group of volunteers who want to share Houston with other people, whether they be locals or visitors to our city. We do greets, as we call them, or tours of about 80 different locations around the city. We say it's see Houston like an insider. So somebody who gives their time voluntarily to help people learn more about our city.
Well, I happen to know, having started working with Houston Greeters a few years ago, that it doesn't go back 30 or 40 years or so. It's a more recent inception. Can you tell us a little bit about how it got started and its early history?
Well, the organization is only about 6 years old, but we're part of a global organization of over 30 cities around the world that have programs like this. In the United States, it's only Chicago and New York City. So we think we're pretty unique and special. The program is growing, and we expect to add more cities around the world as it grows on.
And how did you personally get involved?
I was approached by the previous board chair about sharing Houston and how the program really benefited people to understand the diverse communities that we have here in Houston. And I was fascinated by the idea that so many people are willing to just take their time to share their story about Houston with others.
Well, let's talk about that diversity a little bit. How diverse is Houston, Gordon?
Well, as you may know, a recent study by Rice University listed Houston as the #1 city in the country in diversity, exceeding even New York City. But my concern is that oftentimes while we talk about this diversity, how do you get to meet people from other communities? We're looking to Houston Greeters as being that bridge to join these communities together.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned in an earlier remark just now something like a list of destinations for visits. Is that a fixed list, or can people say, I think on your website people can make a request?
That's true.
Suppose someone said, I wanted to see the famous beer can house. And if that's not on the list, will you try to accommodate them?
We will try to accommodate them, Walter. Again, our greeters know specific areas, but that doesn't limit them just to those few areas. And so while the person may not have the beer can house on their list of itinerary, they may have Memorial Park, and it's close to Memorial Park, and we can accommodate them.
And if you get enough requests, the beer can house will get on the list.
The beauty of it, Walter, to me, is that we can add more and more things as people want to share that. For instance, the Asia Society recently opened their new building in the museum district, and that is being added to our list of sites that people can go visit.
I see. Well, you must be quite busy as board chair and with other things going on in your life, so I don't mean this as a pointed question, but do you yourself ever take people out on greets?
You know, that's a good question. We have wonderful people like Monica who volunteer to do that. I have not had time to lead greets myself, but actually we're working toward having the board more involved in what we call executive greets. Sometimes we have people coming in who are being courted for positions in Houston at high levels. And so we want to be accommodating and show people, you know, like if you're looking at a job in the medical center, to have the former president of one of the hospitals to give you a tour of the medical center is pretty special. And so we have one of those individuals on our board. And so we're looking to develop that, as a matter of fact.
Okay. Well, let's turn to Monica for a bit. Monica, how did you get involved and how long have you been involved?
I've actually been involved with Houston Greeters since its inception 6 years ago. My background is in public relations and marketing and event planning. And prior to starting my own business a few years ago, I was managing the Houston Museum District. So I was very involved in Houston's tourism industry and just sort of grew to love the city. I'm a native Houstonian, and just over the years, in the things that I've learned about the city based on the work that I've been doing, I've just really gotten to love it. And so I knew Susan Borches, who was the one that created the organization or had the initial vision to start it here in Houston. And so she and I got to talking about it, and she told me about her vision, and I said, you know what, this is something I want to be involved in. So from day one, I tried to be as involved as possible, and initially my greet started out as the Houston Museum District, obviously with my work background, but then I've grown over the years to include Herman Park and the rail. I do vintage shops along Montrose and the Westheimer Curve, and Rice University and the Rice Village. So over the years, I've just sort of expanded my area of what I've been able to offer to visitors, and I've really enjoyed it. I love showing off the city to others.
Great. Are you a native Houstonian?
Well, I like to say that. I grew up actually about 45 minutes south of Houston, but it was a small town, and so we were limited on what we could do there, and so I grew up coming to Houston very regularly, so this is home to me. I've been here now living in Houston for about the past 12 years now.
Well, maybe with a background like that, you actually bring more appreciation for Houston to the table. I was just thinking about the area of my childhood, and I realized there are people who moved to that area who could talk much more intelligently about it than I can. I just took, as a child, you take things for granted, but sometimes when you move to a place, you really focus on it and focus on its virtues and pluses and everything.
I remember being a very small child, around 3 or 4 years old, and we'd have relatives come in from all over and stay with us, and I would hop in the car with them and bring them to Houston. So I think it's just sort of in my blood. I've been giving tours of Houston since as far back as I can remember.
Excellent. And do you keep track of how many greets you've done?
I've tried to. I do photography as my hobby, and so I always take my camera on all my greets, and I've tried to capture all the different greets that I've been on, and I'm working on putting together a little scrapbook that just sort of journals all of that. So in a way, yes.
And what would, and I imagine this is hard to answer, but what are your favorite places to take people to? You mentioned the range that you cover.
You bet.
But you must have your favorites.
Well, I really love showing folks the Museum District in the Herman Park area. And the way that I handle my greets is, rather than being I'm not a subject matter expert on any one given institution in the Museum District, but instead I love to show folks the rail line and how that connects the city. So we'll start at the rail, like in Herman Park, and we'll go from Herman Park. I'll show them the Japanese gardens, and then go to the Houston Zoo and show them where the zoo is. We don't always have a time, because usually our greets are about 2 hours or 3 hours, 3-hour blocks. And so I'll just kind of show them the highlights. So I'll show them where the zoo is, show them where Miller Theater is, show them the Museum of Natural Science. And some of these museums you can walk into like their general spaces and not have to necessarily pay admission to go in. So we're very fortunate in that regard that we can pop into a museum and show them sort of the lay of the land and then walk on to another one. So then from there we'll go usually to the Health Museum, the Children's Museum, and then over to the Museum of Natural Science, the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, and show them all of the buildings there and just sort of give everyone a lay of the land so that way they can see how accessible our museum district is, how connected it is, and how walkable it is. And so usually the folks that I give tours to will then come back on another day and spend a little bit more time exploring the individual institutions once they've gotten to see firsthand how very close they are to one another and how easy they are to get to.
Very good. Well, Gordon, how does one become a Houston greeter?
It's real simple, Walter. It's open to anyone who has a concern or love for the city. We have a website, www.houstongreeters.org. They can just contact us and let us know that they're interested in being a greeter. We have an orientation program that we do once a month to just make sure that they follow our basic rules of how to present themselves. We also, let me just tell you, do a background check to make sure that we're not dealing with anybody who we wouldn't want to be a greeter, but just as an assurance for the public.
Can young people get involved?
We have no age limit, so we have people of all ages, especially we have a lot of retired people who like to spend their time doing greets, but it's open to everyone.
I noticed on your website there's a reference to corporate partnerships. Could you flesh that out a little bit?
Well, because we think that, again, Houston is such a great city, oftentimes corporations are trying to recruit people to Houston, and so what we're trying to do is publicize corporations who would like to help be a sponsor for our organization, but at the same time, those individuals will get to have their logo on our website, and we're looking to do an account representative to work with them so that if they have some key people in town and they want to show the spouses, the school districts, or they want to show what arts facilities we have here. Oftentimes people don't realize what a dynamic and international city we have. And so we think we can make a difference for corporations who are looking to bring individuals to Houston.
Very good.
Well, and along the same lines, too, I love that the greeters have been working very closely with groups like the Greater Houston Partnership and with the Greater Houston Convention and Visitors Bureau, because we get a lot of conventions here in town, and so there's also been a really strong partnership between the greeters and some of the conventions, where if a convention needs or has some things that are happening off-site and they need greeters to help guide folks from one place to another and tell them about Houston along the way, that's also something that the organization has done. In fact, in my experience as an event planner, there have been some conferences where I have worked with them on that side of the coin as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
While we allow time for our next guests to take their places, we're going to tell you about some other volunteer opportunities. Teach conversational Spanish in a life enrichment program sponsored by a social service agency in the Cy-Fair area. If you're bilingual in English and Spanish, consider coming by once a week on the weekday morning or afternoon of your choice to lead a 1-hour class. No teaching experience is required. For more information, call Volunteer Houston at 713-965-0031. Mind the Children at the Clear Lake Area Daycare Center of an agency that provides a broad array of services to victims of domestic abuse. Duties can range from preparing meals and snacks to supervising the youngsters in recreational activities and outings. This cheery assignment is available during morning, afternoon, or evening hours. Call Volunteer Houston at 713-965-0031 for further information. Conduct interviews for a Greenway Plaza area agency that helps families experiencing economic hardship. If you can commit 3 hours a week on the weekday of your choice, you can be trained to interview clients and assess their needs. This assignment calls for good judgment and a sympathetic ear. For information on this and other volunteer opportunities, please call Volunteer Houston at 713-965-0031. We're back now with Brian Green, the President and CEO of the Houston Food Bank. Thanks for coming, Brian.
Walter, thank you so much for having me on board.
Brian, I'm aware it's been a busy year for you, at least a busy year, getting ready to open a brand new expanded facility that I assume is going to enhance the capabilities of the food bank a great deal. And so we want to do justice to that. But let's start off with a little housekeeping. What exactly is the mission of the food bank?
Well, the food bank's role in the community is leading the fight against hunger. The food bank collectively works to feed about 900,000 people a year, but the food bank always does this in partnership, which is why we use the term leading the fight against hunger. We actually have over 500 partner charities through which we distribute food that then channels into 18 counties around Houston to provide food access for families in need. And so every week it's about 140,000 people are served through this network of 500 charities, all taking advantage of donations of primarily surplus food from the food industry that we pull in literally from all over the country. It averages about 5 tractor trailer loads in and out per day, 6 days a week, out through this network of charities. So it's a large logistical operation that is designed to actually serve a very basic human need.
And given what you just said, I guess maybe this is a good point to mention to the viewers that unless otherwise announced, you deal directly with agencies rather than the agency clients, right? So you really, if someone is down on their financial luck, they shouldn't show up at the door of the Houston Food Bank unless told to.
Well, actually, yeah, and that's actually a very good point. But because what we do is we link with all of these programs and serve them, so someone can call us if they know a family in need of assistance where, you know, as the month, it gets to the end of the month, the money's running out and they don't know how they're going to make it and there's a risk of their children going hungry. You know, that's what we exist for. And so they can call us at 713-223-3700 and then we'll refer them to the site that's in their neighborhood. We have everybody listed. We keep that information up to date. We know what hours of operation are. We know what their requirements are. And we know where they are. So we just need to know where someone is located, and then we can get them food assistance. So yes, you don't show up at the food bank, although there's a little exception now. We actually built in the new facility an emergency pantry for working households that can't access a pantry in their neighborhood because they're working when the hours of the pantry are open. So it's only for those households. They have to be working households. Literally, it's the only pantry in the country I know of where you have to show proof of employment. And it doesn't open until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 3 o'clock to 8, Monday through Friday, and then it's open on Saturdays. And it's for working households if those pantries in their neighborhood are not open when they're working, which unfortunately we're finding to be a rapidly growing trend. Every time we do our hunger study with Mathematica, we find that the proportion of the households that we serve that are actually employed households keeps going up. The last study, it was at 49% of the households are actually working households. This despite only about 90% of the pantries that we supply have no hours outside of 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, which is why we opened this site up. It's operated by one of our partners, North Channel Assistance Ministries, so technically the Houston Food Bank still isn't serving the individual, but we supply all the food and cover all their costs for that distribution. But we do serve individuals out of that site if their working households can show proof of employment and they can't access the pantry in their neighborhood because they're not open.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's focus on the new site, PerSafe, right now. What does it add to the operations of the, well, maybe if you would first describe the physical capability of it and then go on to talk about what it adds to the capabilities of the Houston Food Bank.
Well, it's a big warehouse. As a matter of fact, it is a former Cisco food distributor warehouse for the Houston area. So it's got large freezers and coolers and lots of warehouse space, but it also has a lot of volunteer space. But what it really adds is the ability for us to pursue where we think the remaining major opportunities for donations of food are. And they are in product that requires work, produce, and frozen. So the first component, which is very directly related to this show, is product that requires work. So when you go to a grocery store and you pick a can up and the can has a little dent in it,
Yeah.
if you're like most Americans, what we do is, oh, I don't want this can. I want my soup not to be dented, or whatever we're thinking, and we put it right back. The store knows this. And so the store also wants to make sure that this is America, everything's got to be perfect, everything's pristine. So what they do is they send it back to what's called a reclamation center, where the can is scanned by its UPC, and then the store then gets credit from the manufacturer. What we do then is we then go to the reclamation centers and we pick up those cans. But now there's a lot of work involved there, because those all have to be inspected by FDA standards. They have to be in some cases sanitized, reconditioned, categorized, boxed, and made ready for distribution. Opportunities like that. Or we receive from local rice growers literally about 1 million pounds of rice a year. They deliberately grow this for us. We just pay the cost for the fertilizer and the millet, and we get it in the super sacks. Well, we have to package it. We have our own brand of rice. Same thing with dried beans that we need to do, or when we're making the backpacks for the children, the Backpack Buddy Club, where we distribute through over 300 schools now, children who show symptoms of chronic hunger on the weekends. We're providing the schools with a pack for them to give those kids on the Friday. So all of these types of projects, and there's many more, require work, and we realize that there's actually more of those opportunities than we currently can do. So what we did in the new facility is we built space for more volunteers to work, a lot more space. The reason why we built a lot more space is because volunteers are not like paid staff, and that paid staff, you say, I want you here these hours, and they'll adjust their time accordingly. Volunteers, you know what, they're giving their time, you're going to need to shift to them. So we designed the space to be able to accommodate up to 1,000 volunteers at a time. So it's like the largest volunteer working opportunity in the state, where people can just come in and work. And this is 6 days a week that we're doing this, including 3 nights. And so the volunteers then literally, to do this, they go online, go to our website, houstonfoodbank.org, you go to the volunteer section, and you pre-register, you print your boarding pass that has your name and it has your barcode. And you schedule your shift. And then you come there, and then we have scanners, and on busy day there's just all lined up. It kind of looks like going to Reliant Stadium, and you scan. Here's where you're going to do your orientation. You go to your orientation room. You've got a nice little cafe for you if you need to wait, large locker room or locker area, big bathrooms, everything that you need. You get your orientation, you get your job instructions, you get placed in whatever job that you're going to be doing that shift. Get your last minute training for that, and you should be working literally from door to working in 20 minutes or less is what we shoot for, and to be able to do up to 1,000 volunteers at a time. So a large part of this building is all designed to be able to capture that volunteer labor. And the benefit to the community, on average, works out to about $75 worth of output to the community per hour. So we provided, I think, a good experience for the volunteers, but also a highly productive experience, and it's something that it's easy to do. Literally, children as young as 8 years old, if they come with their parents or guardians, can do this. And then we take, clubs, religious organizations, corporations, or just individuals coming in, and we're doing it all the time. So we've got a large part of the building is actually designed to be all these different work rooms that provide different opportunities for volunteers to take advantage of these donations that otherwise we just couldn't do. And then we also built in the facility a very large freezer, about 23,000 square feet of freezer capacity. And this is to enable us to take advantage of what has really been a change in the food industry over the last 30 years. If you walk in a supermarket today, think about those of us who can, think about what a supermarket was like 30 years ago. How much of it was frozen versus now? The reality is there's no food bank in the country that has not filled its freezer, because we can't keep up with how much frozen donations there are of perfectly good food, on average more nutritious than what we're receiving in dry goods. It's just a matter of our being able to handle it, and then our partner programmers be able to handle it. It's not, as most people would assume, a question of the clients we serve being able to take the product. According to the Census Bureau, about 99% of the households below the poverty level have a refrigerator at home, so they can take the product. We just now have the ability to do that. So right now, one of the things we're doing, we pulled in 100 totes, which are just like giant boxes of instant quick frozen vegetables. You know, and then we pull them in bulk, and we've got actually 2 cold volunteer rooms. Got to wear jackets, and they pack those into consumer size and then also institutional size for the soup kitchens and the shelters that we serve. And plus, we pull in retail meat where we pick up from over 200 grocery stores twice a week. This is the meat that hits the sell-by date. We pick it up. Trucks pick it up and bring it back, and the volunteers need to sort through that, make sure that it's good so we can distribute that out. So all these opportunities to take advantage of frozen, we can now better do in this facility. And then finally, what is the largest opportunity of all is produce. This facility, we built 3 temperature zones, massive amount of refrigeration space, about 21,000 square feet total, so that we could take advantage of produce. Each year, about 3 billion pounds of produce is grown in the United States and not harvested. Another 3 billion pounds harvested and not sold. It's, for all practical purposes, unlimited of the most nutritious items we can get. It's just a matter of being able to handle it and afford to do it. So this facility is designed to be able to do all 3 of those things and provide what we hope to be just a wonderful volunteer experience for the community to come in and make a difference.
Fantastic. Well, I see we're running out of time, Brian, so let you give the website and the basic phone number for the food bank.
Very good. The website is houstonfoodbank.org, houstonfoodbank.org, and the phone number is 713-223-3700. And you can call that if you want to volunteer, know about the food bank. But if you need food assistance, know a family needs food assistance, or if you need assistance on applying for food stamps, we can help you with that.
Very good. Well, thank you, Brian. And thank you, the viewer, for being with us on this edition of Volunteer Journal. See you next time right here on HTV.